to meet y'all today. The main thing that I want to impress upon y'all is that you have no idea how important what you're doing is. I know that you go to the prisons and you come out more blessed than you went in. And you sink a lot into it, and you leave feeling fulfilled and like you really accomplished something on the weekends or the days that you go for the review program or the RCI or whatever it is that you choose to participate in. But God has perfect timing for every single thing that happens in your life. And I can tell you that from two strong examples, Kolbe is deeply ingrained with that perfect timing. I spent 27 years in prison, 27 and a half years in prison, and I went to the parole board 3 times. The first time I went in 2016, I said that I probably wouldn't make it, but I had hopes that I would make it. But after the experience that happened to me during that hearing, I said I would never do that again. I would serve my entire amount of time that I had to serve and a good time out. 5 years later, I clearly heard God tell me to go to the parole board. A new nonprofit organization called the Louisiana Prison Parole Project had just opened up, and they had started helping a lot of people get out of prison. And every woman that went in front of the board that was being assisted by the parole project made the board. So I started packing I got accepted to the board. The parole project accepted me as a client. I started packing my stuff, getting things away. I went to the board, and they said no. I had no understanding of what could have just happened, because I know that God told me to go, because I was never going to that board again. So I was like, okay, God, I don't get this, and I don't understand, but I'm sure there's some kind of crazy reason for this, but all right. After the board, which was during COVID, my attorney called and he said, Stephanie, I need you to go back to the board in 2 years when you're eligible again, because I didn't see that coming, and I believe I can get you out in 2 years. And I said, Mr. Lancaster, I'm going to be real honest with you. I don't know that I can do that again. So I had to pray about it, and it's almost time for the 2 years. I'm going to let you know how I feel about this situation, because honestly, I'm not real crazy about this parole thing. So when it was almost time for the 2 years to go, I wrote an letter and I said, okay, let's try one more time. So I went to the board in September, and lo and behold, they said yes this time. And wanted me to finish the program that I completed the next day. As soon as the board was over, I completed the program. But I ended up having to stay in prison for a whole other month. And during that month is when the first ever Kolbe retreat was going to be held at LCIW. They didn't have any college retreats. They didn't have minority retreats, but they never had a Kolbe retreat. And because I was very active in the Catholic community, I was chosen to go to that retreat. 2 weeks before I got out, they held that retreat, and it was very, very informative to me. It was very life-altering. I saw some aspects of the Catholic Church that I had never seen before. I enjoyed myself more than I could ever explain. So I go home, and for the next 2.5 years, I've been building my life to try to repair the damage done to my family, the damage done to my community, and to honor the people that I left in prison, because that's my family. And a week and a half ago, I got a phone call while I was talking on the phone, and I didn't answer because I was on the phone. So after I hung the phone up, I realized that somebody had called. So I said, well, I don't know who this is, but let me call him back. So I said, I dialed the phone, I said, hello. The man said, hello. I said, hello. He said, hi. I said, did you just maybe call my phone? And he said, this is Stephanie King. And I said, yes. He said, did you attend a Kolbe retreat in prison? I said, yes, sir, I did. He said, well, we're having a conference in San Antonio, and we would like somebody who's formerly incarcerated and attended the retreat to speak. I said, oh, excuse my language, yeah, I'm here. We're going to do that. So, fast forward to 2 days or 3 days ago, the chaplain at my institute, who I'm very close to, her husband is a chaplain at Angola. Well, my ex-husband spent 16 years on death row before he gave his destiny back to life. And when I was released, I went and saw him one time, and we had a discussion, and I basically told him that we weren't going to have any more communication or speak anymore because I needed to move forward with my life, and he had done some really horrible things to me in the 27 years we were incarcerated, and I needed to move on. And he had his chance, and he blew it, so I was going to not speak to him anymore. Well, I was told that he was going to die. He's going in hospice this week for pancreatic cancer 2 days ago. So I wrestled with how do I handle this? What am I supposed to do? And so I knew that I had to make amends, and I had to allow him to make amends if that was the desire that he had in his heart. So the chaplain called her husband and gave her my phone number because I had never given him my phone number or my address because I was done and I was finished and I needed to move forward. And in the car on the way here yesterday, the phone rang and it was Miss Debbie, and she said, Stephanie, can you take a phone call? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, well, the chaplain is fixing to go where Ron is and allow him to call you. And once again, at the right time, the Kolbe Ministry people were there. I never saw that coming. 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, when they asked me to speak at this conference, I never saw it coming when I was fixing to be released and they had to push retreat. I never saw any of this coming, but I can tell you that I know for a fact that God's timing is perfect, because had I been released when I went to the board the first 2 times, the life that I live today would not exist. The job that I have did not exist. The people who hired me would not have hired me. The man that I've been seeing for the last 15 months was not released from prison at that time. And the person that I shared an apartment with would not have been released at the time. So if you don't know anything else, know that you sit in this room today for a very specific reason, at this very specific time, hearing all these people speak about their experiences, because there's something in here for somebody that each one of these people that came up to the podium today have said. It's important that you know the magnitude of the contribution you give to the prison, because I can tell you that the prison is a very dark and gloomy place without volunteers. During COVID, I'm blessed because at LCIW we have the first women's seminary program in Louisiana, and I was one of the first 20 people asked to participate in the program, and I didn't graduate. And in 2016, we were displaced because of a flood, and then COVID came. So between the flood and COVID, we had no volunteers for a long time. And the seminary students stepped up to the plate and did the best they could to maintain the chapel, to maintain all the things that were going on. But honestly, the volunteers is what makes the difference. If you speak to anyone who's done a significant amount of time, anyone who is active in trying to maintain their faith, anyone who's active in trying to change who they were the day they came to prison, so that when they go home, they can be a different and different person. You're going to hear them talk about volunteers, and I can't tell you how many volunteers are still actively a humongous part of my life, and that really matters. I don't know what the rules are in Texas about people communicating with ex-offenders, but I can tell you that in Louisiana, you have to tread careful waters with that, and those people love me and they take me out to eat, they come and bring me to church, they do different things with me. We have a bunch of college people who get together every Christmas and have a little party, so I just want to encourage you to never stop believing in what you do and never think that what you do isn't important. And please never think that you don't make a difference. Even if you don't see it, I promise you there's a seed being planted inside somebody that you may never ever know you are part of. But I can assure you, it's going to make a difference in somebody's life. And I can also assure you that in your life, you're going to see a difference being made just because you took the initiative to hear what God told you to do, and you were strong enough and brave enough to do it. And I just thank you for doing that.